Welcome back to another episode of the AI Relay. This week, John and I figured it's time to get practical. We are going to be busting open Claude and building an app live on the pod. Not so much because we want to show like a cool app that we can build, but so that we can really kind of dissect basic prompting to see how you can use natural language within a large language model and build something that would be useful for your everyday life.
That's right. We were talking about this week's episode, trying to think of what to do, and we realized we've been talking quite theoretically, conceptually, and making a lot of suggestions, but not really grounding those suggestions in anything really real. So Andrew had a great idea to do this build live. And as we were discussing that, we realized that the actual underlying lesson or communication of this podcast episode is the human side of it, not just the wow factor of what a model is capable of producing and so easily and quickly, but also what is our role as humans? What do we have to do, and what can we do better to get these kind of quality of outcomes?
Yeah, so let's dive right in. I'm going to share my screen here, and we can start digging into to. Well, this is Claude. Now, something like that we're doing right now, you could do this in any of your favorite
So let's
choice, but we're
we're jumping right in. This is Claude, which is kind of like ChatGPT. Many people might be only used to the interface with ChatGPT. So this is the same thing, but a different company, right?
right. Whether you're doing it in OpenAI's tool or Anthropic's tools, there's a certain level of commoditization, right, that
Mm.
exists. They're, like, not that they're all exactly the same, but they all have pretty similar capabilities when it comes to using like the chatbot in this case. We're just using the regular plain old, like, this happens to be everything that we're doing today you can do on the free tier of Claude or OpenAI.
So
uh,
this is free. Like you just have to download this app or just use the ChatGPT app, as you said. Like
yeah,
when it comes to these kind of more middle of the road kind of projects, basically all models are going to handle it pretty well, don't you think?
for sure. This is, we're not trying to invent anything,
Endorse.
right, or we're really not doing anything all that complicated, right? It's
Right.
this is like just a and again, we're not so much saying like, look what Claude can do, as much as like, this is what large language models can do today, uh,
Right.
without any sort of special subscription or paying extra money. Now, I do, because I use AI every single day. I do, and I use it professionally. So I'm on a higher tier, but what we're doing right now is totally available on the free tiers of the services. So
That's right. That's right.
this is just like the regular Claude AI chatbot. In this case, this right here is your model selector, and this is where you can choose which model to use. We are going to select the most capable model. Why not? Uh, Now, there are reasons why you might want to use less capable models. Like, you might ask yourself, like, well, why would I want to use a less capable model? Well, on the free tier of these services, they only give you so many tokens, right? And they give you these tokens in like a 5-hour window, for example. And if you use all the tokens up in your free tier, you've got to wait to complete your task until you have more tokens, and that might
Till that
be
5 hour window resets, right?
totally right.
And
Uh,
this is for Claude. Claude has a 5 hour window. ChatGPT has a different kind of restriction, but they're all kind of guiding you into a restricted box on the free tier of how many tokens you have to burn. Again, tokens are the gasoline of these engines,
exactly.
and how much time you have to burn that amount of gasoline, those
Right.
tokens, right?
So you might ask, right? Like, why would you not want to use the best model?
Hmm.
Well, you don't always need the best model. You don't always need to use like the highest octane gas. And since you're paying, uh, by the token, uh, you might
That's
want to
right.
do something if it's not a particularly complicated task, where you have more tokens to spend. And that's really what model selection is all about. And the
Right.
capability now between, and actually, why don't we even go with Sonnet 4.6, just because it's a bigger basket of tokens, and it's likely what people should use if they're using like the free
And
tier.
you might get the most fuel efficiency out of this. I think a silly metaphor might be to say that, you don't need a heart surgeon to bandage a wound.
Right. That's a
Sometimes you need a heart surgeon, but,
right. Perfect
you
example.
know, yeah.
So in this case, like we're going to use a pretty basic use case that I think most people can relate to, and that's grocery shopping, right?
Grocery shopping. Everybody
Like,
has to do
every-
grocery shopping, right?
for sure.
To some degree.
Or and we like last week we were talking too about prompting and what makes a good prompt. So we figured like let's take a look at a prompt before we actually execute it, and talk about like why this is a pretty good prompt, even though we're gonna build something functional. We're not going to use any technical jargon. We're not going to use we're not going to tell it to use any specific tools or frameworks. We're
Mhm.
really just going to set the stage for like what our problem is, and the outcome that we'd like. Um,
Those are two extremely foundational concepts within good prompting, actually, and you said them so naturally that it could slip by. And so part of what we're gonna do, parallel to building this tool is I'm gonna try to slow that down and catch those little moments because what you just said are actual, like, foundational cornerstones of a good prompt. What do you want, and what is it supposed to look like? They're almost the bookends.
right. So let's start. Let's just dive right in. Right.
So let's,
The first thing that I do when I'm prompting a model is I set the stage for who I want that model on the other end to be, right? Um, these models have general
who you
knowledge.
want the model to be.
Who do I want to be talking to,
Hmm.
right? In this conversation, who is it that I want on the other end of this chat to be answering my questions, right?
So we can sculpt the personality and skill set of the other end of this, like, phone call that we're on?
Correct. And this is what we talking about when we talk about providing context to a model.
Hmm.
This first sentence is providing an enormous amount of context in that one sentence, right?
So what do we got? What's that first sentence?
That first sentence is you are a smart shopping assistant that helps families save money on groceries, right? That's who
Pretty
I would
simple.
be talking to, right?
One line.
One line. And what that does for the model is that models have general intelligence, right? They know stuff about everything. Right now, I want to talk to a model that knows something about smart shopping. Okay. I don't need you to know anything about baseball. I don't need you to know anything about, repairing cars. I need you to be a smart shopping assistant. And that's it. Right. And then I start with my problem statement. Right. I'm a busy new, I have a busy New Jersey family that shops at 4 local supermarkets. I tell them the supermarkets I shop at: ShopRite, Stop and Shop, Acme, and Wegmans. Each week, the stores publish different sale prices, and I waste time manually checking flyers to figure out where to shop. I need a tool that does this comparison for me instantly. Okay, that's my problem. Uh,
So that's your, so that's your problem. Like, if you're trying to mentally think of this as a kind of outline structure, or I'm trying to communicate it that way. So you've given it a role. You said, put on this costume, play this role. And then the very next thing is, what's my problem? What is it that I'm trying to solve or create? Is that right?
right, exactly, right. Just a clear problem statement. I have a busy family. I shop at these stores, and every week I spend a few hours going through all the flyers to make sure I'm going to choose the best store that week to shop at to save money.
And
Uh,
you include in that the request for a tool that will be, right? A tool does this comparison for me instantly. So you've embedded a little bit of something into the problem statement as well that kind of is going to connect your logic through the prompt. Is that
right.
is that
Uh,
going to
well,
play that role?
this is where we start getting into the outcome, right?
Hmm.
And like, what is the outcome of this conversation that I'm having with this chatbot right now, right? So I've set the stage that I'm now chatting with the shopping assistant. I've set my problem statement of I waste time every week searching through the different circulars for all the specials for the supermarkets. And now I get to the outcome. I need a tool that does this comparison for me instantly. That's what I want, right?
Right. So we have role, general context, and problem statement, and then the setup to what do I want you to do about it, basically.
Right. Now, well, here's like the detail. That if it's like if you want a dog with brown spots, search for a dog with brown spots. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I know what I want in my head. And here's
Hmm.
where I'm going to say more than here's my problem statement and I want you to build a tool. In my head, I know that I'm like, I want to be able to upload my grocery list or create my grocery list and save it to the app, right? So because most people are buying the similar things from week to week, right? They're like,
Like pretty repetitive. Yeah.
for sure. I want to be able to like upload or create my grocery list and have it saved there, right? Uh, I want to be able to check or uncheck things that I may or may not need that week. And maybe I want to adjust the quantities, right? Like maybe I need 2 pounds of butter because I know I'm going to be baking this week or, or whatever. I need to be
Mm-hmm.
able to adjust these quantities.
Hmm.
Uh, and then I wanted to compare the costs across the four stores to say, hey, if you want to shop at one store this week, this is where you should stop at. Based on your list, this is where you'll save the most money. Uh, and I also want to be able to have like an optimized strategy where if I'm willing to go to four stores to save the most amount of money, split it up into four different, or, split it up into four stores. And like they probably offer like in-store shoppers to pull your
Hmm.
groceries. You can just pick them up. Right. The other thing is like, I want to be able to upload the circular. Maybe I just want to take a picture of the circular and upload it to my phone.
With just a picture.
A picture, right? Picture or PDF, like whatever you got. Because sometimes I know that we get them sent to us in the mail. You can
Hmm.
also probably go online and download the weekly circular as a PDF.
Right.
Uh, I want to be able to add the weekly sales if they aren't available, like easily available to my app online, right? So just I want to be able to upload the circular and make it simple.
And have that become part of the computation. Obviously, you don't want to just, you know,
Right. Like, and
give it a picture.
I don't want it to tell me that orange juice is on sale at Wegmans. I want to know that Tropicana is on sale at Wegmans. Use the real branding,
Oh, interesting. Okay,
right?
so you
Uh,
pointed that out.
yes. And I want to, make it polished. And like, we can get rid of this demo ready.
Hmm. Yeah, just make it polished, make it look cool. Whatever you
Yeah.
want to write there, you know.
Clean design.
You could even say like make it, give it like a Buzz Lightyear theme. You could tell it
You can
whatever
say
you want.
whatever you want. But like in this
Yeah.
case, I'm just giving it like, again, I'm trying to use just normal everyday language.
Right.
Nothing is technical in this. Um, Now this next part, I these last two sentences, I've been using it, and it's, I think it's a game changer, right? Which is ask me any questions you need to fully understand the use case and functionality, right? I think I've provided a very clear idea of what I'm looking for, but maybe not. Right? Maybe the AI has some questions and it needs to clarify some things with me in like seeing this and creating like my vision of this tool.
So you're
At,
asking it to ask you things.
yes, I'm telling the LLM like if you don't have a clear vision of this app, ask me questions until you do. And then
Ask me for clarification. Like
right,
if I wasn't as articulate as I wanted to be,
or I think I'm being.
don't take any actions yet. Like make sure you know what I'm talking about. Ask me for clarification. That's hilarious in a way. I think that it sort of flips the script a little bit, right?
Well, here's the thing, and this comes from the experience of like not being a developer and building with AI. There are so many things that I didn't think of because I don't build apps for a living, right? So
Right.
this
Right.
helps kind of fill those gaps between like what in my head are the important aspects of an application and it's like and how it's going to work. So that's not always going to translate in the couple of bullets and two paragraphs. So
Right.
by adding this, especially in the kind of last two versions of Claude, uh, you'll see it's kind of baked into the tool, in the way it's going to ask me some questions. And
Almost like it's expecting you to say,
it,
"Ask me something."
yes, it's like you'll see that it, like in the way that it even the app throws those questions back at you.
Mhm.
It's built into the tool. It's really cool. And this last part is like, feel free to suggest improvements, right? Maybe it's
Right.
got another idea that it's going to save me lots of money, and that's awesome, or save me a bunch of time that I didn't think of. LLMs are really smart, so let's have it make suggestions.
LLMs are so smart that even though we've scoped the role to go back to the top of this prompt kind of structure, it doesn't mean, if I'm getting this all right, it doesn't mean that you've completely boxed it off from all of the rest of the knowledge that it contains within its model. So it's not like the way we used to put in like an if this happens, then make this happen kind of super structured, super restraint. There's room even for you to say, feel free to make improvements. And it's the model still has this vast amount of knowledge and information to feed off of. And now that you've created such a nicely structured, although the structure's kind of hidden to some degree, context, which we've talked about so many times. You've given it now a great, pretty simple, straightforward, but concise context. And when you say something like, feel free to make improvements, it's going to use that context plus all of its information that it can access and actually suggest some things. Like it's going to think of new ideas.
Well, let's kick it off.
Let's see, I
Let's
guess.
see if
Let's
it does.
see.
Right.
Let's see.
But just to kind of sum it up here, this is all pretty basic. Like, I'm not using any technical jargon. I'm not referencing any specific tech stacks. I'm really just saying who I need my AI to be, what my problem is, and the outcome that I'm looking for. And then we're just going to kind of kick it off. Um, and like, this is going to cook for a couple of minutes, but like, it's likely that it's going to read the prompt, get an understanding of what we are, and then it's going to formulate some questions. And here we go.
There you
Um,
go. It's already starting to come up with something. And the way that I think Claude works, it kind of shows you its train of thought as it's going along. Sometimes, if it's thinking a lot, it'll sort of flash sentences. But look, it's already popping out a full on reply to you here.
right. So now it's getting to like the question and answer period, and you can see that like in the background, Claude did respond, but it also had some questions in order to flesh this out a little bit better.
And
So
this might be a direct result of you actually having said, "Ask me some questions."
it
Now,
is a direct
this is
result.
the thing.
I mean, listen, if uh, I don't often tell it to not ask me questions
Uh,
because I feel like it's always better to say, ask me questions to help, provide more the specific context you need to kind of see my vision through,
That's
right? So
right.
I kind of always do it as a best practice.
It's a
Uh,
best practice. It's a best
now,
practice. The model recognizes gaps that you and I and us all users just won't recognize, especially as you just said, like you're building something that you don't have the personal capacity to do on your own.
right,
So it's going to know way more about like what you're missing and it's going to fill you in now or ask you to fill it in right now. It's
right,
amazing. It's amazing.
right.
So where are we at?
So right now it's asking me like, how do you want it, like, prices handled when you haven't uploaded a flyer yet? And which good question,
Oh,
right?
good question.
Uh, and it is saying like, show realistic placeholders, preload it with common New Jersey prices as a baseline. I'm going to say option 3, but see what prices you can find online from these stores. All right. Next question. For the split store strategy, what is your tolerance for shopping at multiple stores? Up to 3 stores? Any split is fine. Yeah, let's just optimize total cost because I'm either going to go, um, or let's actually say, let this be customizable.
Hmm. Not taking it a step forward
Right.
because you
Well,
could have also said like just keep it within a 5 mile radius or a
some
10 mile
weeks
radius
I
or
might
something like that,
have
right? Too.
some weeks I might have a lot of time to shop. right?
Hmm.
And if the savings is massive, then maybe I'd be willing to go to 4 different stores. But if
Sure.
the savings is like, maybe a couple of bucks, it's not worth the gas. So
So
we're gonna
a little meta loop there. Like you're saying, let's make it customizable, but right now what you're doing is customizing the outcomes that you're actually looking to produce. If you
Well, it's
follow
something
my
that I
loops
didn't
there.
think about too when I was giving it my initial prompt of like, well, how many stores am I willing to shop at? Am I
Right.
willing to go to all 4 stores?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's something that is not going to be a constant. Sometimes I just want to do a one store strategy, right? Because I just
And
want
this is my point is like this is just you. So for someone
right.
else who might experiment with making anything like this, you're customizing as you go. Even though you're telling it like make it customizable, you're customizing the thing that's going to customize it, which is I think pretty fun. So
And
go on.
so now it's saying like, what features matter most? It's thought about some features like save list across sessions. I think that's important. Weekly list history with past trips. Yeah. How about per item notes, brand preferences, organic only? That sounds pretty good. I didn't think of that, but no. And then a print friendly shopping list. Nah, I'm gonna say like I'll probably use the shopping list on my phone, and so make it a readable, friendly list for my phone. And then we're gonna submit these. All right.
And
So
now
like now it will likely sometimes it'll come back with a couple other questions, right? So now it's going to do its thing. Right now you can see like it hit with ShopRite. Um
and so this is still context engineering in what we would call, I guess, multi turns or multi shots. Um,
I get
in
it,
that
it truly is, right? But um
it's not engineering anymore. It's just a conversation. But if you peel the layer back a little bit, what the model is doing is it's filling in even more and more context for its objective. And what every model, I think I'm understanding it as a machine because it's so easy to think of these things because they're so personalized. But it has a kind of singular goal. It's get to the end, like get accomplish the task. So you've set it up with a task and it's not ready to go for it yet. It's putting it together. It's asking you, I need more information so that I can effectively find the quickest point between here and there. And before I get on that journey, I need more context. And it just asked you a bunch of things. It's computing a bunch of things. And you gave it some more context in the sense that you answered its questions, right? That's still context.
right. Uh and and now it's going ahead and it's building the app and we'll see what it builds in a couple of minutes. What's cool sometimes you can kind of see its train of thought. You can
Right.
see where it's going out, like the sources that it's gone and found. And when we talk about like lots of times we'll talk about like agents and like what is agentic AI. Um, and this is an aspect of like agentic AI because it's going out and it's doing something outside of the model. So like right up until this point, we have been chatting with the large language model and it's only been using the knowledge that it has within the model in order to ask us questions and provide responses. But as soon as it had enough information, this is when the conversation began. It became agentic because it's now
Agentic.
agentic, meaning that like it is doing something outside of just the chatbot, right? This is now gathering information that it didn't have before. It's gathering more context, like to help solve and build this problem. And
The
its
model is
model is using a tool that is not the large language. In this case, it's using a web browser, right? So the model is
right.
using a web browser to go and search the web and find, prices for, grocery stores in, for ShopRite, Wegmans, Acme.
So the chat interface is, to put it in silly metaphors, like the mouth of the model, and it now also has kind of a tool belt in hands that when it's not speaking to you, the model still is actually able to compute and function. For example, using a web search and going and finding the prices at what did you just say, A and P or something.
Right.
So it's the model still is the engine in the car. The car now can just do more then sort of rev itself and talk to you, right? That's what's happening.
Yes. So anyway, so here it went out and built this little app, right?
Hmm.
Uh, you can see like Tropicana OJ, where it's on sale. Or we can, in some cases, let's see, let's have it build this out. Uh, cool. All right. So it built out the app, but it wasn't really usable or publishable, and that's kind of interesting. So I
Yeah,
just
I'm
said,
noticing it's still embedded in the chat there, right? It's not like
yeah,
you
it's
can't
it,
take
like
that with you.
typically, and this might be a little bit of the demo gods smiling on us and giggling. But anyway, I just made a little note to make this a publishable widget. What do I mean by that? Right. And I'll show you in a second. You'll
Right,
see that
because there you're drifting into a little bit of jargon. Like what could I have written that's not a publishable widget?
like we could have just said, make this a usable app,
There you
right?
go. A
Because right
usable
there,
app. Make this an app I can have on my phone or
right.
something like that.
There are
And
different,
so
I
this
mean,
could have been included in the original message, right? And I don't want to call it a prompt, although the point is that it is a prompt. But like your original chat message was pretty concise and I thought well crafted. And yet, look, at this particular outcome, it didn't think, oh, Andrew's going to want to have this on his phone. It just was like, well, you asked me for an app. Here's an app.
well, we can save this right here as an artifact. I didn't look at the little
Oh,
ellipsis
it,
there.
it gave you the option.
So it gave me the option, and here we go. But let's see what it does anyway with that. So I had the ability to, and let me also say this, right? My experience with building this stuff is typically that it does a good job, but you often need to like test it in the sense where
Hmm.
you have to like look at the functionality that it built and make sure that it works. Just try to upload a circular, and if it doesn't work, you just say, "Hey, I tried to upload a circular and it didn't work. Like, let's
Right.
figure this out." It's not
You
always
are I think there's a term, right? The human in the loop. We hear that a lot inside the AI jargon circles. Human in the loop, HITL, you see it a lot abbreviated. And I think that is literally, you just described it. Like you let the model do its thing, and then you decide when you need to kind of jump in and correct the drift or kind of clean up some of the things that it thinks are functioning, but it needs a human to pass through and actually physically click on it and try to upload a document or try to edit a number. So, and then, right, it's not an emergency, right? You could just go back and be like, oh, I just noticed this, fix it, right?
right. You can see here too that like now that I asked for a publishable widget, it's now going to build a proper front end. This is something that I'm just pointing out because I know what this means, right? You might not know what this means, but React is a technical framework for building like web interfaces, right? So like when you see a
Web
website,
interfaces.
yeah, a web
What
interface is like the thing that you open, like the website that you open,
the
right?
website.
And you click on buttons on that website.
The thing,
That
I mean,
is
interface is an obvious word, but it's the thing I'm touching. It's the thing I'm clicking.
right.
I'm interfacing
And
with the
React
web.
is a technology used to make pretty usable user interfaces for websites. So once I said,
So
I'm
a
going to make
web designer would know what React is. A web designer uses React to create websites.
right, and I didn't ask for this, but it understood that like this is what I want. I want a publishable widget. And then it said, okay, let me recreate this with proper React components, and that's really just saying like, all right, now I'm going to build this. Now I'll build this functionality out. Um,
So for a regular user, like that might pop up
you don't need to,
and you could just be like, I don't really know what that means. A lot of times when I'm building things, it tells me all sorts of stuff. And I can recognize like, I probably don't actually need to care about what that is. If it's a real problem, it'll resurface later. And I just move on stuff
right?
like that. Like if you see a word pop up, like I'm going to use React to build the backend DB, like I don't know what that means. Who cares? To your point offline,
Who
we
cares?
are not developers. We just want to see it work. The
Right.
only thing that we care about is, does it work? Pass fail.
The only
Pretty
thing that
straightforward.
matters is the outcome. You
Right.
don't need to know what is actually happening here, right? So like we're watching, right now in the
A
background.
massive amount of codes,
This
you
is all
know,
the code that's building. You don't need to know. This is the
who
beauty of AI is
cares?
that like you
This
really,
is exactly right.
who cares, right?
Exactly right.
Now,
So this is the beauty of it. All of that just a few years ago is a foreign language people needed to learn to skill up. When we were talking the whole learn to code era, which
right,
thankfully was just a flash in the pan, it broke a lot of people's minds because they were like, how am I supposed to learn this whole new thing now? Like, I don't want to learn a whole new thing now. And something we've hammered in all the episodes so far is that like the beauty of this is that it's not like software engineering. It's not like any technology that we've ever had in our lives because you just talk. You already know the language for it. It's amazing.
right. So here you can like we're kind of watching the sausage get made, which I like to do, but it's not necessary.
Hmm.
And we said like we're kind of watching in this window. We saw it like writing a bunch of code, and then it went to bundle it, and then it actually went to run it, and it experienced an error. So it needed to now it's fixing the favicon
Now,
reference, and
you
it's
didn't tell it to test it, right?
correct. And, okay, so now
You didn't say build it and then also make sure it works. And yet it built something and you noticed because you were just keeping an eye on it that it actually found an issue and had to go fix its own mistake or its own issue. I don't know if mistake necessarily, but like something wasn't working and it went all by itself and fixed it. No need for you to know anything about what that meant.
right.
And here you go. What do you got?
So here's like kind of our fake shopping list.
Hmm.
You can add additional items to it. Okay, so here's a perfect example, right? Uh, it's functioning, it works, but I don't like obviously like this is no good when you add a new grocery item. Uh, you can't really see the text box because it's gray and it's with the
Hmm.
So I'm just gonna say when adding a new item to the list, the new item box is not
Now,
clearly
before you hit send, let me ask you a question. So you're going to tell it that you found an issue, right? And
yeah,
you're going to describe the issue. Could you do something like take a screenshot right now and just drop it in?
100%. You absolutely can. So let's do that, right? And
Huh.
let's tell it what we mean. So
Right.
I'm now gonna just take a quick screenshot here, which let me copy it to my clipboard, and then we're gonna give it the example of what we're talking about. And that
So it's gonna, in a way, or almost literally, visually have visual context to loop it all back in, right? You just gave it a different kind of context. It's still context. It's just not chat words. You gave it a file, in this case, a screenshot, and it's going to join this mosaic of context that it's been building since the beginning of this session. And amazingly, like it's going to see what you're talking about. That makes it so much easier to identify a problem because you could just say like, look at this, click,
right, and it
and
said, "Hey, good catch. The modal's rendering behind the dark overlay, but the z-index layering is fighting with the sticky header. Let me fix the modal so it's clear." I don't know what that means. I don't have
who
any idea
cares?
and it doesn't matter. The
Who
only thing
cares
that
what that
really
means?
matters is that like when I click the new item checkbox, that it
Right.
it looks the way I want it to look. So
Right. The human in the loop here isn't to understand what it just said to us. The human in the loop is when it tells you it's finished, go check its work. Did it
100%.
really do it? You know?
And listen, as these models get better and better, it will and there are ways to kind of augment Claude so that it does a better job kind of out of the box. And we'll get into those sort of advanced
Yeah.
features of like skills and plugins and MCPs, all those things.
And just straight up techniques as well. There are tools, skills, and all these different things and techniques for dealing with it. And I think you're right. We'll get into that. But the amazing thing about this episode right now is that this is a fresh session on what is essentially a free tier. Like it doesn't even really need to know who you are at all. You're just opening up a free tier and saying, we're going to build this today.
And we're not even using the best model. We're using Sonnet 4.6, which is a very good model.
And for this task, it's actually just as good in a sense as Opus 4.6 or would have been because the heart surgeon to the bandaging wounds thinning, like how much better is a surgeon going to bandage a wound?
Right.
It's it doesn't need to know the rest. They
All right.
both are going to do this just as well. So what do we
So,
got? Oh, look at that. It's a whole different look.
right. It found the problem. it fixed the problem. It gave us the technical reasons of like what it was doing, and I don't care because like I don't know what any of that means. I'm not a it doesn't mean anything to me. What means something to me is that like I can see the add grocery item now. And so, you know, without like, now all of the features in this little app that we just built should be tested. And when you find something, and you will find something that doesn't work the way it's supposed to, you just kind of go back to Claude and say, hey, just like we just did, this feature isn't working. Let's fix it. And it'll, figure out what it did wrong and it'll fix it. So without going through this entire app, and let's just pretend like, okay, I'm super happy with this now. And I want to share this with John, right? There's a little like drop down right here that says publish the artifact. And that will
Publish the
essentially,
artifact.
that'll take this little app that we just built, this little web app, and it'll publish it to a website that anybody with the link can access.
So the app is the artifact.
Correct.
The whole kit and caboodle.
The
The word
whole
artifact means the whole thing that we just built is an artifact now. It's like an existent object in a way.
So now I'm
And
going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to send John the link, and you can go and access the little app that we just built.
so, I mean, this is a bit of a Claude use case, I suppose. But so where did
Thing with with OpenAI and ChatGPT.
where did this just get posted though? I don't have a website. You don't have a website,
Right.
right?
It's part of like, Claude. Claude allows you to, create these little widgets and publish them on the web. And they give you a URL. You could, I mean, I wouldn't suggest like hosting like an enterprise app up there. But for like a little something like this, where it's like, who cares who has access to it? It doesn't have any access to my data. Uh,
Right.
it's a little web app that I use, let's say I use and find useful and I want to share it with John. You can just go and do that. John can go click on that link and open up and start using the smart grocery store pricing
Right.
app.
And I just did, and there it is.
You can share your screen if you want to show people what it would look like living outside of the chat window.
Google Chrome, like to.
You might need to,
I need to set up some stuff to do that. Let's not waste that time. But trust me when I tell you that
well, I can, let me do it real quick. I just popped it open in the
the
studio.
functioning app is on my web browser right now, right
I'll,
next to the
I'll share
tab that we're talking in right now.
because I'm able to do it. Here we go.
Um, and I mean, we've been at this for about 30 minutes, but mostly Claude's been at it for about 30 minutes, right? You took some time to write a message, you answered a handful of questions, and then you did a little bit of human in the loop testing here and there. But as you point out, like if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, you would go through every little function, make sure they all work the way you want them to. And then, before the session's done, you'll be able to just pop back and forth to the chat and clean up whatever isn't functioning nicely or the way it looks, or maybe something's completely broken.
Right.
But so yeah, I mean, we've been going for almost 40 minutes on this podcast, but the process itself, but probably took less than 10 minutes in total time, because you started with a solid message to try to bring this whole thing home. The solid message was a prompt. And if this was 3 or 4 months ago, we would have been talking about the structure of a prompt and what it should look like, and that it should have a kind of header and some bullet points, and that these things should happen in this order. And it was natural language, but from a distance, it did look a little code-like because it was so structured like. And it could have been a little bit intimidating
Well, I
in a
mean,
way.
2 years ago, most AI was just a chat bot. Most people's interaction with AI was like through a chat interface. So at that point, the only way to provide context to the model was prompting. So you would have to provide as much information as you could. And when you're providing a ton of information to a model, models do better with structured data than unstructured data. So, um, as these models evolved, right, they have the ability to go out and grab context elsewhere, like web searches or,
Or the screenshot you just uploaded,
or
right?
the
Like the
screenshot to be uploaded, right? That wasn't something that you were always able to do.
right.
The ability to support like that multimodal type,
That's the word I was
that's
waiting
that
for.
multimodal,
Multimodal. The modal is different modes of input, I think is the best way to wrap that up. So you have everything from a
right,
picture to a PDF or a spreadsheet or, a website with articles and essays on it.
right,
And anything that you can think of that is an input is now possible because of these multimodal
right.
uh,
And really,
models.
like, what's cool is that, this is something that would be useful for me, maybe for some other people. But doing this sort of thing isn't should not be relegated to like people that like want to build and sell apps. This should be
Mhm.
how people interact with AI, right? Like
Uh-huh.
when you have a problem that you want to solve it, have it build something for you that's reusable. When people talk about the value of code dropping to zero, it's not because that code isn't providing value anymore. It's just that it doesn't cost anything to have someone write it for you, right? This is an incredibly useful tool, for anybody that needs to go food shopping. Um, the value of the tool is high, but like the code, it was free,
You
right?
just saw it flash in front of our eyes in meaningless ways, and
Right.
it happened within minutes.
So like when people talk about the value of code dropping to zero, it's really because like, when anybody can go and in a few minutes build their own little useful app. What happens to all those, you know, all encompassing?
Software companies.
And this is why you're starting to see like that what was called the SaaS apocalypse over the last couple of weeks, where
SaaS. What's SaaS?
SaaS is an acronym for software as a service, right? And it just means that it's like software that is run like elsewhere, like you're not installing it on your computer. It's software that's like run on a website or a web app or something like that, right? So it's like
Something like we might think like Gmail or like, what
email,
is it?
perfect
Microsoft
example, right?
365 or something?
Gmail is software as a service. The like Office 365 is software as a service. Maybe you use Salesforce or Workday or any of those things. Like those are also, common software as a service.
Yeah, or even like a QuickBooks. A lot of people use even for personal financing, right? That's a software as a service.
Well, it is if you use QuickBook Online.
Yeah,
If
that's
you're
what I meant.
using QuickBooks where like you've installed the app on your
Mm,
computer, then that's not software as a service. That's just software,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Uh, and
But
that's
this is different. This is not software.
Yeah, because like this card compass that we just created, because this isn't something that I installed anywhere. This is just running on the web, and anybody with the URL could use the app. This is something we call software as a service because it's not software running on my computer. It's software that I'm using that's running as a service somewhere in the cloud.
Oh, so
And that's like
software the software as a service apocalypse or SaaS apocalypse didn't
SaaS
kill
apocalypse.
software. It didn't kill SaaS.
It didn't
It
kill
just
SaaS.
turned it into almost
Well,
free.
I think what is happening and what the markets realized is that SaaS these SaaS companies have been, like, valued as, like, massive growth companies,
Mm.
because, they would add features that their client base would, then just lock them into their service for the next, few years, and that, like, you growth was predictable for SaaS until all of a sudden we have this technology here that can build you in a few minutes what SaaS was selling you for the last 10 or 15 years.
For
So
thousands and
and it's
thousands of
not
dollars.
it's not as if all of a sudden Salesforce became worthless. It provides incredible value to thousands of companies. It's just that their growth model has now changed. It's like, well, what happens now when that new feature that was going to sell 10% more licenses is now a feature that like anybody could actually build using their model. I don't need to go to Salesforce to build it,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
it's not going to lock me into Salesforce. I'll just build it myself.
Right.
And so
And
that's
build it yourself is exactly what we just did today.
yeah,
And the real, I guess, the subject of this episode is multifold. Like, look how fast you can do something. Look how wow and fast something could be, almost magical. But the point here really also was, what went into it? What was the human side of it? What did you ask it? Like, how did you structure the concept of it? So, like, what was the question? What did the model need to accomplish its task? Did you explicitly state certain things? Did you have different ideas in your head? Uh, there was a quiet structure in a way to what you had written that achieved very instant, almost instantaneous output.
Yeah, and I think, like, right, the moral of the story here is that, you don't need to really have any sort of, technical knowledge. You just need to have the knowledge of what the model's capable of, in order to kinda start going and using it in a way that, like, that's beyond, "Oh, look, it can answer random questions that I have with some accuracy." You know,
Right. So the key there is like
it's very
the prompt no longer needs to be some overly thought out, structured scenario. It could be natural language, but you want to have clarity, not fuzziness. That's really the more important part, not whether it's structured or natural, but is it clear or is it vague? Uh, are you expressing your goals, and your vision? And you don't have to have a polished vision. That's where you can go back and forth and kind of refine as you go, which is part of the fun, actual creative process of it. But at least kicking it off, the clearer you kick it off, the faster the process is going to go.
Yeah, and
So, like,
this is a basic app that had a basic prompt, and we didn't augment Claude with any tools to make it better. It's just, out of the box, and I think as we kind of go down the road of this podcast, we can, start getting a little bit more sophisticated in, how we prompt and how we provide more context
mhm,
to the model to get a better outcome. But I think, like, as an example for just basic prompting, no additional tools, free tier of Claude, that in 30 minutes or so, you can walk away with something pretty cool and useful. And honestly, like, if you build something like this for yourself, and you could easily save the $20 a month that Claude, like a premium Claude
right.
might cost you. Uh,
Yeah.
you
I mean,
wanted to do something like
until,
this as an example to find the money in the budget to, start using Claude's paid tiers, like, do something like this. Have it go through your bills and be like, "What can I eliminate?" There's so many different ways you can apply this without any technical knowledge to make small, let's say 1%, quality of life improvements to
mhm,
people, where if you
mhm.
did 10 of those, the compounding effect, it would be massive, right? So
Right, and
maybe
and
one of
it's in our hands. It's
it's
something we can control within our little sphere of influence, our tiny little speck of,
right,
of influence, but we do have an ability to control certain things in our lives, and to your point, like, we do have some ability to actually improve our own lives. We don't always have to just keep waiting for the next
and
tragedy or crisis to pass.
this is not a technology that is for others to use, right? This is a technology for people to use. You can see here, we didn't do anything that required any kind of technical knowledge. Our
That's
only
right.
knowledge was that we knew that we could do it,
Right.
and we did it.
That's
So
right.
I think
Right.
that's probably a good place to kinda wrap up this week.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
yeah,
agree.
so I think this
I
was
hope that was a different kind of episode, and I hope we see some more comments down. Again, ask us anything about this episode if you want to see other examples of things built, or any ideas of any topics that you want us to touch on. We are still in the early days, so all of the feedback is extremely valuable to us, so we can be making podcasts that people want to hear. Kind of like we were just talking about. We want to have a clarity of thought, so we can have the quality of outcomes that makes sense. So this has been kind of a prompting in disguise themed episode. This has been the AI relay, and we look
next
forward
week.
to the next one.
Right on. Later.